consequences, disaster management, public education and outreach, and that's a bit the field where I'm active in. And also a lot of legal considerations need to go in there, and also to help understand, help our decision makers understand the complex topic in order to make the right decisions in case there's an asteroid coming. Coming to your question.
Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette, and we're so glad you're with us on this day to stay curious. And we have with us Alex Karl, Eurocom. He is coming from Belgium. Hey, Alex.
Hey,
Mark.
How you doing, good buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Well, good. Alex works for ESA, and he's a contractor that works for ESA. Clear that up. And he communicates with the European astronauts on the International Space Station. So how's Samantha Cristoforetti doing?
She's doing fine. Thanks for asking.
Good. And you had Matthias Maurer was up there. He's fully recovered from his 6 months in space. Have you talked to him?
Yeah, I saw him shortly after he came back, and when he was starting his rehabilitation program, and that's progressing fine. And I think this weekend, last weekend, he was actually in Berlin at the International Air Show there to represent ESA and do PR events, as astronauts do.
Well, Alex is very involved with the ESA space program, but we have him on today to talk about something else that's his passion, is Asteroid Day, which is June 30th, coming up here, and there's a big conference in Luxembourg that you're taking part on. We're going to have Alex talk about here in a minute, but Alex, Asteroid Day, give us the background of what's going on with Asteroid Day. Let me put it's on June 30th, so I'm going to have you explain not when, but if. I mean, not if, but when we will get hit by another big asteroid. So what's this all about, Alex? Take it away.
So, in a nutshell, what's this all about? So, as you may know, there are plenty of asteroids out there in our solar system. And I'm sure we'll talk about it in a bit. You all heard about the fate of the dinosaurs. And you may remember the Chelyabinsk event back in 2013, where all the Russian dash cams show this meteor entering the atmosphere and the following airburst. And so the biggest impact, actually, that has been recorded in human history was the 1908 Tunguska event, where I think 2,000 square kilometers of forest were leveled by an airburst. And estimates are this object was about 50 meters big, which, if you consider, is not very much considering. And this impact happened on, well, technically it's not an impact because it exploded in the air, happened on 30th of June. And that's why the UN in 2014 declared Asteroid an official UN Observance Day to raise awareness among the public to learn more about asteroids, the threat they pose, the things they can tell us about the early stages of the solar system, at least, and also the role they play potentially in mining and science and all those great things. So,
well, Asteroid Day has 3 interesting founders, and this is a big day of 2 or 3 day event, right, that you're having in Luxembourg with astronauts speaking and scientists and so forth. You go this way there. But Brian May, who lots of you know as the guitarist for the rock group Queen, is a doctor of astronomy. He helped found this, as did Apollo 9 astronaut Rusty Schweickart, who says there's no accepted policy on what to do about asteroid impacts. And then a lady named Danica Remy also is one of the co-founders of this. And just before, this is the Tunguska event. Oh, I wanted to point this out. Alex, everybody can see on spaceweather.com every day there are thousands of potentially hazardous Earth asteroids. They call them PALs, that are plotted. And this is a chart of today of about a half a dozen objects that whiz by the Earth just in the last couple days. Isn't that amazing, Alex?
Yes, it's quite busy up there. Luckily, most of them just pass by. Um, but this is, you point out an interesting or an important point, Mark, because um, what I find fascinating about asteroids or asteroid impacts is that it is the only natural disaster we can not only predict but prevent, given enough time. So if you think about hurricanes, tsunamis, volcano eruptions, or you name it, some of them we might have trouble predicting, or some we may be able to predict, but then there's nothing we can do. While an asteroid impact, if we learn about it sufficiently in advance, and that can be 10, 20, 30 years, also depending on the size of the object, there's still time to move it so it doesn't hit the Earth. And I think that's just fascinating.
And we do have the technology to do that?
That is actually, we will find out. Right now, as we speak, the NASA DART spacecraft, which was launched last November, is on its way to the binary asteroid system Didymos. So Didymos is the main asteroid, and it has a little moon, Dimorphos. And we're going to hit Dimorphos, the moon. Mm-hmm. And we know the orbital period of the moon, and we're trying a technology that is called a kinetic impactor. So we just smack the spacecraft into the moon, and then we can observe the change in the orbital characteristics around the asteroid, and then we can determine how well the technology worked. One thing about asteroids is actually that we know very little about it. We have seen with the recent OSIRIS-REx mission to asteroid Bennu from NASA, as well as the Hayabusa 2 mission from JAXA to asteroid Ryugu, that the surface properties were different than expected. Hayabusa 2, for example, they both of those missions collected samples. Hayabusa 2 is back on Earth, and they're studying those samples. OSIRIS-REx is on its way back right now. But in both cases, the surface was behaving in a way different from the models and as predicted. So that was very surprising. And so we are still learning about asteroids and their properties. So if we should find one that's coming our way, we of course want to know what's the best and most efficient way to deflect it. And therefore we need to know how they behave. So, and DART is one example how we can do this. And this is the first time we're trying out this kinetic impactor technology. And 2 years later, actually, ESA will launch a probe called Hera, going to the same asteroid and measure it in very detailed fashion to really find out all the details about the impact and how well it worked. But we can tell already, like shortly after impact, how much the orbit of the moon changed. So that's going to be super interesting, and that will happen on the 26th of September this year.
Okay, 26th of September is when we're going to be hearing about that. Well, we're talking with Alex Karl. He is a Eurocom for the ESA. That means that he is involved with the International Space Station astronauts, the European ones, and their and we have Samantha Cristoforetti up there right now. Alex was talking about International Asteroid Day, that he is what did you call yourself? A planet?
Well, I guess you can call myself a planetary defender.
Defending our whole Earth here, which because you see on my green screen here. We're the only border that matters is that blue thin line there that the moon's rising above there. But International Asteroid Day is June 30th this year, because that is the date that an unknown object that's assumed to be a comet or an asteroid blew up above Siberia in 1903, I believe it was, Alex.
It
And
was actually 1908.
okay, thank you, 1908. Over 100 years ago, there's the impact area that this object did not hit. It exploded above the ground, and just thousands of acres of trees were leveled. People saw it as in Siberia. If this would have happened over Moscow, and there's a modern picture of the debris hasn't, the trees haven't all grown back, and there is a ground point zero there. Uh, Alex, if this had happened over Moscow, what would have happened?
That would have been a bad day for the world. No, this would definitely have caused some damage. Definitely localized, so it's we can say it would have destroyed the city.
And here's the most famous one we think about, an artist concept of 65 million years ago. A asteroid did hit in the Gulf of Mexico. And Alex, why did that cause an extinction? I'm going to put up this little picture here to kind of you see the cartoon of the impact creating a whole. Well, let's see there. Impact. Why does this impact create? What does it create, and why did the dinosaurs die out, and why do we need to be concerned about this?
Yeah, so the first thing to note here, this object that hit the Yucatan Peninsula was 10 kilometers across. That's 6 miles. So that's huge. And everything above a kilometer can be considered a planet killer if you want. Well, it doesn't technically kill the planet, but it kills a lot of life on it. So in the case of the dinosaurs were not the only species that died. There were about, I think, 75% of species, they all died. Not immediately. So what happened is, so the asteroid impacted the Earth. And of course, you have all this energy that's being released in a big explosion. So everything surrounding the immediate area would have been wiped out completely. Most of the rock would be molten. You have the impact. You have lots of dust being thrown into the atmosphere. And they have found actually ejecta from the impact all the way up to the northern United States. They found recently fish with some of the little spheres that are created from the melt, and they found it in the gills. So they're fossilized, and so they could say like, hey, we found a direct victim of the asteroid impact. And by those studies, they could also determine that the impact happened in spring.
Really?
So of course, that's first the immediate local damage that happened, but with all the dust in the atmosphere, of course, basically the atmosphere got a lot darker. So you got less sunlight, and it got really dark for about 3 years, or some models say up to 20 years. So obviously, if that happens, the crop cycle stops working. You have the plants dying if they're normal plants, and that includes plankton in the ocean. That is the baseline food for all sea animals. Of course, they don't find any food and they die. And only a few species, the only type of dinosaurs that survived are the birds. So birds are a type of dinosaurs. And of course, that made the way free for us mammals who were hiding in caves or in some. Well, mammals back in those days were quite small. It's like squirrel type, mouse-ish, I would say. So they were living underground and were therefore protected and could find some scraps for food to come by until the sun came back, basically. And obviously, with all that dark sky, the temperatures dropped considerably.
And that's
so
like
massive climate change, loss of nutrition, everything at once. So that led to the demise of the dinosaurs.
Great explanation. So if we had a large asteroid hit the Earth now, uh, you would have the same thing happening, what you described, a runaway greenhouse effect, which is also sort of what we're talking about with global warming too, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, first it cools down and
Mm-hmm.
then it warms up. So there's a it's yeah. There's a lot more happening
It's a
than
complex thing.
this. Yeah.
But you explained it really well. We just wanted to show this picture here to our Stay Curious fans out there that these are the asteroid. These are the impacts, okay, of larger than 3 kilotons or 1 kiloton, okay. So these are impacts recently around the world of something that is bigger than about 2,000 pounds. And a lot of recent hits, of course, the Earth being 70% water, we're not seeing a lot of these hits, are we, Alex?
That's right. Also, you can see the biggest of the circles is over Russia, and that's the Chelyabinsk event that I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
That object was about 20 meters across.
Wow.
So the size of a house, and it exploded about 20, 30 kilometers up in the atmosphere. So it didn't even hit the ground. Okay, it exploded in the ground, and most parts evaporated, and there were some pieces found on the ground, some meteorites. But the most of the energy release happened in the atmosphere. So even on this map, considering all the energy, very little of that arrived on Earth. And the Chelyabinsk event still injured about 1,500 people. Most of them because they run to the window because they saw the light. And then with the delay of the shockwave arriving, everybody was standing on the window, and then the shockwave arrived, the windows shattered, and most people got injured by glass and debris.
Wow. Yeah, forget about that delay there as you're looking at that. Yeah, glass, millions and millions of dollars of damage. Of course, car horns honking everywhere when that thing happened. It was in the middle of the morning too, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I
I think it
believe.
was like early morning, people going
And
to work.
but it was a grazing. Explain that had a trajectory that was actually not pointing down, but just kind of grazing the earth, right?
Yes, and this is also a good you're showing there. You see, the events are basically distributed all over the globe. So there's no location that is, let's say, safe
Mm-hmm.
from asteroid impacts, and therefore it's a global problem that requires a global solution. And it's those asteroids or comets, they can come from any direction basically. And as you said, this one it was more grazing. It came in at a very shallow angle. And there have been some research studies done. What if the angle had been steeper, and what would have happened then? And actually, I'm not sure if there's agreement whether it would have actually hit, but it would have come a lot lower into the atmosphere and would have done actually a lot more damage than it did. So we kind of got lucky there.
Alex, we're talking to Alex Karl. He is one of the coordinators for Asteroid Day. He's going to Luxembourg later this week, and where there's a whole host of panels, astronauts talking about this awareness of not if, but when a major asteroid will hit the Earth. We can't predict that. We showed you there's over 2,000 potentially Earth-hitting asteroids orbiting our solar system in there. People are very kind of naive to celestial mechanics. So, Karl, why don't you talk about, we're talking about asteroids, but people hear about meteor showers, okay, and where are the asteroids, and are they different from meteors for Joe and Jane America out there?
Okay, let me first clarify one thing, because you said I'm one of the coordinators of Asteroid Day, which is not accurate.
Okay.
So I don't want to get in trouble with those people.
Right. I get in trouble with the Europeans all the time, but
so they, but I do work with them. So my hats, and this is outside my ESA Eurocom stuff. I do on a voluntary basis. So I'm one of the co-chairs for the Planetary Defense Conference that is happening every 2 years, where the whole planetary defense community comes together and talks about all aspects of planetary defense, from detection, over characterization, deflection missions, modeling, impact, consequences, disaster management, public education and outreach, and that's a bit the field where I'm active in. And also a lot of legal considerations need to go in there, and also to help our decision makers understand the complex topic in order to make the right decisions in case there's an asteroid coming. Coming to your question.
Meteors,
yes.
Asteroids, shooting stars, falling stars.
Right. So you have probably most viewers and listeners have heard about the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. So in the formation of the solar system, once the gas cloud condensed and your planets started developing and going around the sun, you have some leftover building blocks. And there is quite a large number between Mars and Jupiter. And you have also on the outer reaches of the solar system, so beyond Pluto, like double the distance of Pluto, and I think even 10 times the distance of Pluto, is what's called the Oort cloud, and that's where most of the comets come from. There may be collisions, there may be gravitational influences by a passing star that comes close to our solar system. And they get nudged out, and they take millions of years until they reach the inner solar system. But that's basically where the comets come from. And comets are unpredictable because we just see them when they're out at Saturn, Jupiter, maybe once they heat up and start to get active. That's when we can see them with our telescopes. Asteroids, on the other hand, they just like the planets, they circle the sun. So once we detect them and have enough observational data, we know their orbit and can therefore also predict when they will be where. And as you mentioned earlier on the spaceweather.com website, you have the potentially hazardous asteroids. And those are the ones that cross the orbit of the Earth. So those may be from the asteroid belt, but you also have some leftovers that are still in between the planets, so to speak. And at the early history of the solar system, you had a period that's called the late heavy bombardment. And the best evidence you can see is when you look up at the moon. Most of the craters on the moon are coming from that period. And when there were so many rocks hitting the planets, Earth included, we just don't see them anymore because Earth has all kinds of weather, water, wind. That's I want to say erosion, but I'm not sure if that's the right word right off the top of my mind. So it's there's a lot of change happening on the Earth's surface, while the moon, which is not geologically active, keeps this trace. That's also why it's so interesting to go to the moon, because it's basically a history book of the solar system. So this is kind of your source of asteroids. So they go around, and some of them, they cross Earth's orbit. We want to know where they are, and we're trying to find them. There is a list somewhere of... so the good news is, as of right now, within the next 100 years, we do not know of any asteroid that's going to hit us. That is the good news. The bad news is we are not aware of all the asteroids. So this is also why NASA is building the NEO Surveyor mission, hopefully launching in 2026. That would put a telescope in orbit. Because right now, from Earth-based telescopes, we can only observe at night, and therefore everything that's coming from the direction of the sun, we can't see. And the Chelyabinsk object was actually one of those examples, so we didn't see it coming.
So what's the smallest object that we can see right now?
It depends how far away it is. We actually discovered, I think we had 4 or 5 that we actually that we saw before impact and could predict an impact. But those were like 2-3 meters across, and we predicted it maybe 20 hours before impact.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Um,
and that's not
while of
enough
course,
time to mount any protection.
no, but and with this size you don't need to, because they all maybe you find some meteorites. Which, coming back to your question, so anything of a meteorite or an asteroid or comet that survives entry through the atmosphere um, and ends up on the ground is called a meteorite. While while it is in flight and you see the light, it's called a meteor. And coming back to the meteor showers, that is usually when a comet um, passes the inner solar system. And because it gets heated by the sun, it loses a lot of material, like dust and maybe some rocks and some ice. And those are dispersed in space, basically, like leaving a trail behind the comet. And when the Earth, on its orbit around the sun, crosses this path, we get all these tiny particles that enter our atmosphere, and this creates the meteors we see. So it's basically just the size of a grain of sand.
Mm-hmm.
So there's absolutely no danger. So we can lean back and enjoy the show.
Good. Yep. And but once in a while we have in the news, they'll say, oh, something the size of a house just went between the Earth and the moon. And we didn't know about it. These are the ones that we're kind of worried about, are we, Alex?
Yes. So there are two things to look at that. One is like the media likes a good headline. So it depends also on the media outlet, but some really make the problem appear bigger than it really is.
Mm-hmm.
They say, oh my God, an asteroid the size of a house is passing close to Earth. And if you would look closer, you find out, the distance is 10 times the distance to the moon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that is really close, and we need to worry about this.
Yeah, that'd be 5 million miles away.
Exactly. But it is true that some of them we only see once they have passed the Earth, and we see them on the way out.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I was talking about earlier, that the bad news is we don't know all of them yet. And that's why there are initiatives ongoing by NASA. And there's also the Verosi Rubin telescope being built in, I believe, in Chile.
Mm-hmm.
That has, I believe, a 22-meter mirror. So then once the NEO Surveyor will be in orbit and we have this big ground telescope, we should be able to find a lot of asteroids very quickly.
That's a 60-foot mirror there.
Yes, it's incredible. And that will fill the gaps in our knowledge because, as I mentioned earlier, the only way to prevent an impact is to know that it's coming early on, so that there's time to mount a mission and do something about it. So finding them before finding us is really important.
Well, Asteroid Day around the world is celebrated June 30th. That's this Thursday. Alex Karl is coming to us from Belgium. He is a planetary defender at a conference in Luxembourg over the next few days, as well as we're glad that you're a friend of our museum, Alex. He's been in our museum a couple times. You come over here for the launch of the ESA astronauts. We talked about Samantha Cristoforetti's up there now on her second tour of duty on an expedition up there. But Alex, tell us a little bit about this conference here. As I wanted to show a picture of, I know Rusty Schweikert was involved in founding this, as was the rock star Brian May of the guitar. He's a guitarist for Queen, but he is a well-respected doctor of astrophysics. Spent many years with Patrick Moore, the great Patrick Moore, on his TV show up there. And not if, but when we might get hit by another rock. And this whole conference is a little bit about the awareness, as well as how to move something in a different direction. So tell us about the conference coming up here, Karl, next couple of days. We're going to be promoting it on our Facebook page, so you can hook into some of the events.
Yeah. First, a word to Rusty Schweikart. So I had the honor of meeting him a couple of years ago. He was actually instrumental in setting up a framework at the UN. So when, as you can imagine, imagine we discover an asteroid and it's headed our way. Then the questions start: who's doing what, and who's going to pay for it? And so it's and usually there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of like where exactly will the asteroid hit, at least early on, once it's still far away. And there's something called the risk corridor that will cross many nations on Earth. Um, and usually many of those don't have their own space program, or if they do, they probably do not have the capability to actually do something. So they would need out to reach for help if they wanted to prevent that impact. So it comes down to the nations with large space programs who would be able to pull that off. So what Rusty was instrumental back was his with the Association of Space Explorers. They basically went to the UN and said, "Hey, we need some legal framework here. So in case we find an asteroid coming our way, we don't waste time with setting up who's doing what, but at least have this part ready, and then they can go into action." And I think that started around 2006 or maybe 4, 6, 7, somewhere there. So it's been quite a while ago. And the outcome is that back in 2014, if I'm not mistaken, the UN General Assembly actually approved the creation of two groups. One is called IWAN, the International Asteroid Warning Network, that includes different observatories throughout the world, as well as the Minor Planet Center, so that they collect all their observational data and share it among themselves. So that we always have the latest up-to-date information, which object is where. And that's also where all the amateur astronomers come in, because they can help track those objects and help us define the orbit better.
Is there a certain website that they can go to if you want to be involved in that, Alex?
I believe it is iawn.org.
Okay.
But maybe you have to Google it then. So if you Google International Asteroid Warning Network, you will definitely find it. There's a website. And actually last year they held an exercise. They pretended, you may have heard about the asteroid Apophis. It's a 300,
yes.
It's a 300-meter object that will pass within our geostationary satellites on Friday the 13th in April of 2029.
Okay.
And it will be visible with the naked eye.
Wow, 7 years from now.
Luckily, it won't hit, so nobody worry. But it's a great opportunity to study one of those things up close. And we don't even have to send a mission far because they're coming to us.
Right.
So that's kind of a nice gift there.
Serious business. This is a serious consequence that a lot of people just really don't understand. You got the United Nations backing. You got countries coming to Luxembourg to talk about this. Tell us a little bit about the celebrities and attention this is getting in Europe.
Let me just finish, if I might. The second organization there is called Same Page. The space mission. I always miss a letter. The Space Mission Advisory Council. So that is once a certain threshold is crossed, and it's like if the chance of impact is higher than 1% and the object is larger than 50 meters and the impact is, I believe, less than, there was some other metric I don't have at the top of my head now. Then those group gets together, and those are representatives of the space agencies, and they put together a plan what could be done to either prevent the attack, not attack, but to prevent the impact, or depending, maybe it's better just to evacuate people. Who knows? But the important thing is they're not making a decision. They're just working out options and hand them over to decision makers who then have to say, okay, this is the path we will follow. And this is why it's important to also educate the decision makers what is going on, that they can make the best possible decision. Coming back to the event that's upcoming in Luxembourg, so Asteroid Day is actually a global celebration, if you want. So anybody can organize their own events. You can go to the Asteroid Day website, that's asteroidday.org. You can check if there are already events going on near where you live, and you can join them. Or if there's nothing, feel free to set up your own and register through the website. They have great material there you can use for different kinds of events. It doesn't have to be huge. It can just be a gathering of some people. So just have a look at the website and do your own. The one in Luxembourg, that's where the headquarter of Asteroid Day, I believe it's a foundation, is located. So they're having a nice celebration and bring together people who are active in the planetary defense community. And there will be some technical presentations. There will be some mingling. There's a gala dinner. There is, and of course, there is Asteroid Day live TV. It's streamed on the web for, I believe, 4 days. So the live program is 4 hours on the 30th. I think it starts at 5 a.m. Eastern time. So, and lasts for 4 hours. So from 5 to 9, but then it repeats. And that's where a lot of the experts get to talk about anything asteroids related. And of course, a lot of astronauts are invited. If you look at the website, there's also the, so Asteroid Day, when they started, they wanted to increase by 100-fold the frequency of discovering asteroids, because as I said, we don't know all of them, and that's really one of the most important things. We can only do something when we know about it. So a lot of, I think they have over 125 astronauts who already signed this declaration to call on world leaders to increase the efforts in finding asteroids before they find us. And some of them will also be there. And of course, a lot of experts in the field. So that's going to be very interesting.
We will be checking it out. I'll be following some of that. A lot of astronomy friends of mine are interested in following it as well. Planetary Defender Alex Karl here, coming to us from Belgium, where the ESA headquarters are, at least where he's a contractor. Alex, you got anything else to say about Asteroid Day? I'm going to ask you about your ESA job here a little bit.
Yes, I have to correct you there for a second. So the ESA headquarters is in Paris, not in Belgium.
Gotcha.
Otherwise we get in trouble again.
Yeah. I'll have your public relations lady on me really quickly. But yes, Paris, you have facilities like NASA does around different points in Europe. So tell us where you work in Belgium, what goes on there?
Actually, I work in Germany at the European Astronaut Center.
Okay. Yeah, right. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, in Bonn?
It's Cologne.
Cologne,
Bonn
yeah,
Cologne.
Cologne, yeah.
The airport is Cologne, Bonn. So.
Okay, yeah, that's what we're thinking about. You're in Cologne there. But Asteroid Day, June 30th, Planetary Defender here, Alex Karl. Alex, tell us a little bit about what's going on at the International Space Station. It looks like your expedition crew is about halfway through their Expedition 67. Everything copacetic up there?
Yeah, time flies. People already start talking about the return. So the planning has started, and that's currently scheduled for mid-September.
Okay.
And in the meantime, of course, lots of science is going on, and all the good stuff that's happening in space.
The good space stuff on our wonderful International Space Station that Alex is involved with, talking to the European astronauts up there and doing other things for the ESA. When are we going to see you again? You going to come for the launch of Artemis in August or September? ESA is a very big partner on that with the service module of Orion
Uh,
coming from you
that
guys.
that is true. So I'm sure some ESA people will be there, but that's a different department. So
Ah, doggone it! Hoping to see
yeah,
you again. Yeah,
and I don't want to switch jobs, so I'm quite happy what I'm doing.
good, good. Well, we're very
So
happy that you support the American Space Museum and Stay Curious program this way, Alex. You've been a go-to guy for us, and I know I can email you about stuff and get direct answers. It's really a treat to have you on here.
yeah,
And
it's my pleasure, Mark. You have a great museum, and I really like what you do. So
but when you get
keep it
back
up.
here, we are right now as we speak renovating our conference room with drywall, getting rid of that old 1970s looking wood paneling, and then we are scheduled to be closed from July 15th or for July 18th for a couple weeks at least, as new carpet is going to be put down in our wonderful little museum. So it'll look a little buffed up next time you come back here, Alex.
I'm looking forward to seeing that.
We're looking forward to seeing you. Alex, thank you for a great program. It's 6 hour time difference, so we know that you have maybe get ready to go to bed or something up there in Europe. But
Not quite, but it's getting close to dinner time.
yeah, we're getting close to dinner time. Well, thank you very much, Alex. Anything else you want to add to our Stay
Uh,
Curious fans?
just a little thing. I want to share the T-shirt with you.
Oh,
And
that
this is
looks
why we're doing this, because dinosaurs didn't have a space agency.
good enough. They certainly didn't.
And
All
that's an
right.
official ESA shirt. So
Awesome. Well, I'd take a large, so but we'll swap some swag next time you're here as usual. So, Alex Karl, thank you for being a friend. Thank you for updating us about Asteroid Day coming up this Thursday, June 30th. You want to be part of that because this is something that does affect all humanity, all right? We can't get around it. So, Alex, thank you very much for staying curious. You folks out there, we'll see you again with another episode of Stay Curious. I'm Mark Marquette. Can't wait for you to come to our museum like Alex has to what? Bridge the space between us. Thank you.